After my father died 14 years ago, I returned to Chicago after a week or so in New Jersey. I wasn't really sure how to re-enter, but with 3 small children, I was really quickly guided. In fact, hours after I entered the house, I loaded up David and Talia, then 1.5, into the stroller, and I headed around the corner to the shoe store. After all, they were beginning to walk, and I could hear my father saying, "Get those kids some real shoes." After my mother died last month, after Shiva in New Jersey, and before I returned home here, I took a walk near her house, what's called the South Mountain Reservation. More than anything else, I felt the need to take a walk in the woods by myself before I left my hometown of 55 years. I looked at the leaves, I watched the sun going down, and I just let my thoughts go where they would. On my return to Evanston, I informed each of my 3 children, now teenagers, of a custom, the Jewish custom of walking around the block after Shiva, symbolizing one's return to the world, as it were. We live, as it happens, on a tiny little triangular block, and after we got up from Shiva here, I took a walk with each of them individually. Those were short, but for me, meaningful walks. Since then, with the good graces of weather and I fear global warming, I've kept walking. After a blissful summer of outdoor swimming, I swapped my goggles for my sneakers and have begun to walk again. In my neighborhood, by the lake, around Evanston, in the forest preserve. With the return of the warm weather and the still changing colors on our trees, it's pretty amazing, as you all can see. I've been walking, thinking about walking, and thinking about how we talk about walking. I mean, right? We walk all the time. We walk with purpose to get somewhere. We walk for its own sake. And often we don't think about it, we just do it. Unless, of course, we're unable to walk or it's painful to walk. And in those times, each step is a deliberative, something we deliberate on. It is about deliberation and perhaps hesitation, making every step count. Think about how we talk about walking. We say, "Walk tall." "I'm walking on air." "I'm walking the dog." I am not walking the dog, let's be clear. Hospital chaplains say that they walk beside a patient that is accompanying them spiritually on their journey. Hopefully, we're not walking on eggshells or walking the plank. Maybe we walk our feet off. We go for a walk, we take a walk. Some of us can even walk and chew gum at the same time. If we're lucky, things are a walk in the park or a cakewalk, and life doesn't cause us to walk on a tightrope. And if we are wise, we walk softly and carry a big stick. And how often do we question or challenge someone else to walk the walk or walk the talk? Our patriarch Abraham in Lech Lecha, this week's Torah portion, is told by God essentially to walk the walk. He's told to go, leave everything familiar, leave your land, leave your father's house, and leave your birthplace, God tells Abraham. God says, "You're going to go to a place that I'll show you." That is an unnamed place. So Abraham doesn't know where he's going. He's told literally Lech Lecha, the Hebrew being really go for yourself. The verb lech is translated as go, but it is literally walk. Those of you who know Hebrew know lalechet or ani yolechet, taholech. That verb lech is literally walk, and later in the portion, Abraham is told to walk before God with a pure heart or dedication to God. And God will make a covenant with him, God promises. That's the gold standard in biblical relationships, a covenant. So here's what's interesting. The commentaries juxtapose Abraham and Noah. Noah walks with God. Abraham walks before God. Why the difference? What does it mean? The commentators take this up, and one says that Noah needed God's support to hold him up, to be righteous, so he needed to walk with God. That same commentator says, well, Abraham had his own sufficient inner resources. He had his own moral strength, so he didn't need God's support, and he walked before God. He was righteous. The English definition of righteous or righteousness is the quality of being virtuous, honorable, or morally right. The Hebrew word is tzedek, the word we translate as justice or fairness. You all know the word tzedakah. That's loosely translated as charity. It is our giving, our responsibility to give to help others. Tzedakah is related to tzedek. It is about trying to make the world more fair, more just, or more right. Of course, how we walk or go about our lives is not limited to Noah and Abraham. Look behind me. Words of the prophet Micah. Higid lecha adam ma tov u'ma Adonai doresh mimcha, ki im asot mishpat v'ahavat chesed v'hatznei lechet im Elohecha. It has been told you, person, people, what is good and what God requires of you. To do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. That's all. God demands justice, kindness, and humility. Walking here is more than just taking a walk in the forest preserve, as beautiful as that is. It's about how we live our lives. Truly, the Micah text sets a very high bar. So too, lech lecha. In these early words about Abraham, well, he just goes. I often wonder what his conversation with God was. He doesn't seem to question it, which in Torah terms puts him as a paradigm of faith. I think today if someone said, go to this place and I'm not going to tell you where, we'd have a few questions. But Abraham sets out on a physical journey, and along that he has an emotional and spiritual one. At times he asks questions, he demonstrates his faith, and he even shows some growth along the way. Rabbi David Wolpe writes, God's initial command to Abraham, lech lecha, can be understood not simply as go forth, but go to yourself. Wolpe writes, the Torah is teaching how difficult it is to discover who you are, self-discovery being a lifelong journey. Rabbi Wolpe quotes a famous Hasidic rabbi, the Kotzker Rebbe, who asks, if I spend my time being someone else, who will I be? And Rabbi Wolpe adds, no one, after all, will be you. So why waste the God-given opportunity to be you? Years ago, up at camp, up at Olin Sang Ruby Union Institute, I was up for Karav, our teen retreat every spring, and I was walking with Peggy Rubenstein, who many of you know, a member of our congregation. We took a morning walk. We got lost. Not so hard, easy to get lost in a Economo walk around Lac La Belle, but we did. And a woman called out to us, you've got to walk your block. Peggy and I thought, okay, great. Could you give us just directions? We'd get back to camp. We'll be fine. We weren't really sure what that meant, and over the years we've talked about that. This was a lot of years ago. Likely, she was just telling us to get back to where we started. But I hold on to that instruction as more of a life lesson. Today, that instruction bears meaning, to me at least, as to walk your block is to fulfill your responsibility, to live our values, and to do what we need to do in the world. To that end, a story of one more walk. I think it was the 1995 primary. I was still living in New York. I was at the Hebrew Union College, which is down in Greenwich Village near NYU. And my grandfather, Morris, was 95 years old. He was still living in his Bronx apartment overlooking Yankee Stadium. And I took the subway up for lunch. Grandpa and I then walked up 161st Street toward the Bronx County Courthouse. It was a very slow walk. Grandpa was 95 and had a walker. We headed up toward this incredible building. If you know it, it's an Art Deco WPA-era building at 161st Street and the Grand Concourse. Grandpa was determined to vote. I was a little concerned he might get knocked over on the street or fall. But Morris a naturalized American citizen who arrived in 1901 as a small child after being born in Romania, was proud to be an American and proud that he never missed an opportunity to vote. He would also tell you who he voted for, but that's another conversation. He never, ever missed an election. So we walked slowly up toward the concourse, Grandpa in a Brooks Brothers plaid shirt and blue jacket, moving his walker ever so slowly, his brown eyes steely behind his glasses, focusing on his goal. Grandpa voted that day and for several more years. He lived to be almost 103. And when I think back on that walk, I think of Rabbi Wolpe's explanation of Lech Lecha. Go to yourself. Engage in self-discovery. Whether we walk on our own with righteousness like Abraham, or we walk with assistance like Noah, each of us has the ability and the responsibility to go ourselves, to go to ourselves, to be true to ourselves, to live our values and be our best selves. Each of us has the mandate to fulfill the words behind me on the wall, to do justly, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with God. And each of us has the ability and responsibility, if we're of age, to walk the block to the polling place this week, however slowly, but with the force of determination and commitment of our values that my grandfather showed some years ago. Tuesday, I will walk with his inspiration. I will take my opportunity to walk the walk my block, walk my talk, and support the rights I cherish as an American citizen. Won't you join me? Let us all walk to vote, each of us with our values at